Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. On today's episode, I have got with me Stuart Murphy, who is the Head of Transformation and Integration at Royal Mail. Before I get you to speak, Stuart, I just want to say thank you for joining me. But I was so over the moon to hear you at Greenfleet Juice last year. I mean, it's last December that I heard you, and we'll talk about the way you were talking. You had a session right at the beginning, and all the things you were talking about then. But it's so brilliant to have you on today. Thank you for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So let's start by just saying how many years we've had quite a long chat before recording. In fact, poor Stuart had a nightmare getting on the system that we've been recording on. Anyway, we're here now. Technical difficulties, it's always one of those things, isn't it? But we were just chatting about how long you've been at Royal Mail. Can you just give us an introduction to you and what you've just told me about your dad and kind of how it was obvious that no matter what you were going to do, you were always going to work for Royal Mail?
So I've lived with Royal Mail for all my life. So my dad was a postman, and went through the ranks at Royal Mail and did somewhere in the region of 43 to 44 years with the business, and retired as a delivery director for the London region. And as a small boy, around about 5 years old, I used to go into work with him on weekends and school holidays, and I used to sort mail. So letters and parcels, and my payment was a Mars bar, which I loved. And
Love that.
Yeah, it was just it was a very and it still is a family orientated company. And as I was explaining to you, when I graduated for university, it was a lovely picture of me and my dad, and my mum couldn't have taken the picture at a more prompt timing, because just as we're standing there, the Royal Mail van went past, and there's just a picture of me and my dad standing there with the Royal Mail cruciform next to it. And yeah, had I known a year later, I'd be working for the business and I'd still be here 21 years later. So so I've done a few jobs in my time in the business. Started as a collection manager over in the Kingston and Twickenham area. And I'm now here doing weird and wonderful things with electric vans and all the wonderful things that come with transforming a fleet of this size.
This is amazing. And you know what I was just saying to you? So my brother-in-law, Alistair, we talked about this just before we start recording. He's a postie up in Carnforth. So for any of you that don't know, and we were looking on the map to work out so I could tell you where it was. If you look on the west coast above Blackpool, there is then Morecambe, and then Carnforth is kind of inland from there. So he's been a postie for many, many years. So it's nice to kind of hear your background as well, you know, and kind of what your dad was doing. But yeah, that is, and so many people, Alistair's worked for Royal Mail for many years, and a lot of people do, don't they? You know, it's one of those places where you kind of stay.
It's one of those unique businesses. So I say this many a time: when you're born, you become a Royal Mail customer.
Yeah.
So the moment you start getting your christening cards or whatever you get, that's your introduction to the business. So you become a Royal Mail customer for life. And as an employee of Royal Mail, there is a responsibility. So I touch every person in the UK, I touch at some point, and the decisions I make influence their lives without knowing,
Mm,
which is a really big responsibility. And when I take, yeah, I hold really dearly. So it is a very unique. It's a bit different to the NHS. The NHS you use when you need to use it,
mm-hmm,
but Royal Mail's always there. There's always a postie walking up your street. Um, and yeah, there's so many fantastic stories that I hear about posties delivering babies or dealing with elderly people that have unfortunately fallen over or something, and we're
mm-hmm,
there to help them
mm-hmm.
in time when they need it. So we are one of those unique companies, and we're very proud of that, and the role we play in the community. And like I said, everything I do, every decision I make, potentially has that ability to influence and change somebody's life in the UK. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really important company for the UK and what we do.
And it's just thinking about that kind of it's very touching if you kind of think about how we see Royal Mail as a whole, and what, like you say, how it kind of reaches everybody, and no matter what. And obviously we at home at our house, we get less mail than we used to do, but our postie still comes and delivers parcels on other, on behalf of other organizations, don't they? So
Yep,
so your van fleet, and we did talk Postman Pat earlier, didn't we?
we did.
And I promise I won't sing. Well, I might sing it later. Um, your van fleet is there and delivering, you know, and you've got, we'll talk about it in a second. You're delivering so many things to so many people every single day. What is every day? Is it every day now? Are you 7 days a week? Or is
We
it
do, we
six?
do, we do operate on a Sunday as well now.
My
So
goodness, I
in
thought it
certain
was.
locations. So yeah, we do. We are out and about. So you will see a red van, yeah, on your roads on a Sunday in certain locations.
So let's talk about electrification, and I want to start with Greenfleet Juice, because like I say, that is where I saw you for the very, very first time and heard you talk about the way that what you've been doing to electrify the fleet. See, I've got somebody else's teeth in today at Royal Mail, because you've done some amazing things, but the way that you actually talked about it was so entertaining. It just made my day. It really did. So you put this in the words of, and I'm going to just explain it slightly for everybody to understand. If you had a child and you've read Going on a Bear Hunt, yeah, this is how Stuart explained it. And I just thought, oh my God, as somebody who's stood and trained people and done consultancy, that's just the way you want to have people listening to you. So it was brilliant. But you don't need to do the whole on the bear hunt.
Thanks for that.
How's it? Oh no, but it was great. But talk about how you've started. How did you start and when did you start introducing electric vans into your fleet, and what, so just explain to everybody what size fleet you've got in the first place, if you will.
Okay, so we operate around about 50,000 vehicles and trailers across the UK. So you're never far from a Royal Mail vehicle of
Mm,
some sort. So
mm,
whether it's a small van or an articulated lorry running up and down the motorways. Um, so we've actually got, not many people understand this, but we've been using electric vehicles now. Our oldest electric vehicles are getting close to about 10 years old. We introduced them just as a trial. So yeah, you can imagine maximum range 60 miles.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a really old technology, but they're still on fleet and
right,
they're still running strong in terms of it. We've over the last few years we did things like uh, optimize prime, which was looking at not only running vehicles, but looking at how the power got to the vehicles, how you could change the way you use power in the buildings and things like that. And we introduced a small fleet for that as well so that we could test it. Afterwards, as a company, it was very much, well, what's our next steps? And we made a decision about 2 years ago now to go relatively big with electric vehicles, and in 1 year we introduced 3,000 vehicles. And like I was saying to you earlier, it's very much right. How do we do this? Who do we talk to? What can we learn? And it was a case of, there's no one. There's unless you're talking to a charge point provider, a charge post provider, or anything else. Public charging was very much in its infancy, so there was not really anybody to talk to in that space. And from a commercial point of view, again, it was very limited. So it's very much Royal Mail stepping into this in a trialing and testing format. And over that year we did it, we learned a huge amount in terms of what we were doing. So and we run into all sorts of problems that most companies, most people would never want to. Things like, you'd think you were dealing with tarmac, you were dealing with that, all of a sudden you'd run into reinforced concrete underneath the tarmac. We had it in Morpeth, where our perimeter is on Hadrian's Wall. And as a result of that, we started to dig the yard. All of a sudden, we had the time team turn up, or an equivalent, who thought there was an ancient burial ground, and we had to wait 2 weeks for somebody to dig the ground up to find out whether there was bones underneath.
Oh my God!
Before we could start again. So it's not been an easy ride. Even what we thought was an easy site to electrify has been difficult. But I'm really proud that I've got a very team that our one true value as a team is perseverance. And even I always use this, and I always say to my team, even on a cloudy day, it's sunny. Because the sun's there, you just can't see it. And I think that's how we've got through it. It's just been a case of perseverance. We've used some initiatives. As I explained at the Juice event, we built a bridge to go over things where somebody said, we don't want you to dig the ground up. We said, right, okay, well, we'll go over then. There is an answer to everything. It's just sometimes you need to take a little bit of time and take that step back to get to where you need to, but you will find an answer. And I think, our electrification today has been built on perseverance and not taking no for an answer. Royal Mail is very much a case of where we are a company that is so reliant at peak. So our peak is Christmas, and that's when we support Father Christmas in delivering millions of parcels and presents to children, and that's really important to us as a company. So one of the things we've always done is said, right, no building work during peak. Well, my biggest claim to fame, or one of my biggest claims to fame, is Norwich Delivery Office went live 24th of December.
Oh my goodness.
With their electric infrastructure. Why? Because we've introduced processes that enable us to segregate how we do the infrastructure. So we're not taking over a complete yard. We can work around the operation, and we can do things that in Royal Mail's history hasn't been done before. And I think that's like I said, as a group of individuals and a team, we're really focused on making sure that we don't stop, and we can't stop, because the moment we do stop, it becomes a juggernaut to start again. So yeah, I'm just proud I'm able to lead what we're doing.
Nice.
I'm
Amazing. And you were kind of, so I suppose when people think of Royal Mail going electric, it, like you say, it's not just about Royal Mail going electric, it's all of the, like, everything that goes with that, like you're saying, with the infrastructure, making sure that you've got the depot charging, making sure that actually you've got enough range on the vehicles to be able to provide that postie, or that driver with what they need to kind of have enough juice, as it were, to get round wherever they're going and coming back to depot and that kind of stuff. So what would you say then? I know you've kind of said about the bridge. Was that the trickiest thing you've done?
It's probably the most innovative thing we've done,
And what did the
because
bridge do?
again, so basically, so we operate double deck trailers in Royal Mail,
Yeah.
and it basically takes the electric cable from the building over the top of the trailers coming through, and then down the other side to where the charge posts are. Um, and yeah, it needed structural engineers and everything else, and it's a landlord site, so the landlord needed to be happy with what we were doing with their building and property. Um, but when you look at it, it was a HTV route, and the landlord said, "I'm worried about things sinking over time and things like that." So we said, "Okay, well, what if we did go over? What would you say to that?" And they
Mm,
were very receptive to it. So um, it's just looking at things differently.
mm,
Um, and yeah, Royal Mail's got thousands of properties. Not one is the same.
no.
Um,
Mm, mm,
and in terms of it, not every site we can put a standard charge post in.
mm,
So we're now working with companies with regards to wireless charging.
mm,
We're looking at other companies that are bringing out new ways of introducing charge points. Um, and certainly, yeah, also looking at other countries in terms of what they're doing, because it's not. If I think about the UK, it's very much a standard charge post, but when you go to European countries, it's gantries with wires dangling down and things like that, and we're not quite in that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure we've done enough cross water benchmarking and looking
yeah.
at different ways we can do things.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's not this electrification, full stop, of vehicles and your fleet. It's not a one size fits all scenario, is it? Like you say, because of the fact that you've got all of these different buildings and different scenarios and different vehicles coming in on a daily basis. That's not how it works, is it?
No, because we've got. I think if you think about the Royal Mail fleet, I've got what we call our final mile fleet, which is what you see day in, day out coming to your door. We've then got Parcel Force, we've then got Royal Mail Specialist Services, we've got Property and Facilities. And when you get into property and facilities, it's cars, vans, um, people taking things home, um, and you've got people having things in the van, so you then need to think about shelving and all
Mm,
that sort of thing that goes with that. So we are very unique in terms of what we do. Um, when we're talking about electrification, it's not just the depot we have to worry about, because we maintain most of our fleet as well. So it's making sure our maintenance provision is brought up to speed and is equipped for what we need. So it's upgrading diagnostic systems, it's upgrading tools, making sure our mechanics are trained, to be able to do what they need to do. Um, and we're not just dealing with small vans in terms of electrification. We are now moving into Arctics and 40-ton trucks in terms of electrifying those as well. So it's all exciting. It's a fantastic place to be, but it can be terrifying as well, because you are stepping into the unknown, and we are a company that are doing things, I suppose, a little bit quicker than others. So when you're in that, you're always taking that sort of leap of faith.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Kind of
but
leading the way though with this, aren't you? You're one of the, you know, there aren't any kind of large organization. No, there aren't many, you know, I'm not saying there aren't any, there aren't many big organizations that are pushing it in the way that you are currently. I mean, you kind of said, you know, you've got 12% of the delivery fleet is electric so far, and actually, you know, but you've got 50k on the road, so yes, you have got quite a long way to go, but you've still got a lot that have already moved into you know, moved over to electric anyway. And if you've got, like you say, Arctics and all sorts to move over, then it's going to be over time, isn't it?
it is. It is. So yeah, we've got over 5,000 vehicles, and we've got another just over 2,000 coming in this year. Which means we're electrifying something in the region of around 40 depots this year.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and again, when all of those are completely different, um, you need to look at them individually, and your list can't be 40, because you're always going to run into problems. So to
Mm.
electrify a list of 40 depots, you're looking at sort of 60, 70 that you need to start with,
Mm.
um, to go through them all and say, right, have you got the power? Yeah, will the vehicles all operate okay? Yeah, have you got a workshop that's got the maintenance provision that you need? Is it landlord? Is it freehold? Yeah, do you need to go off and show plans to the landlords, for example, before they'll give you permission to do things? So there's loads of things you have to go through before you get to the wonderful sight of seeing your site electrified. Um, but yeah, we've built over the last 3 years, we've built processes that enable us to do that, and we're pretty confident that we know what we're doing now. Touch wood.
Well, exactly, and it sounds like you are. If we just kind of go back to the vehicles, because we were talking earlier as well about the fact that you said about the range, didn't you? But also the conditions that those vans are driving in. So, for example, with Alistair, my brother-in-law, up in Carnforth, similar to how you talked to me before we were recording about, you know, kind of going down farm tracks and bumpy roads, and like you say, you know, you're going from one kind of camber to another. You've got to have vehicles that are able to manage that. And you said to me, didn't you, the manufacturers themselves, because you're leading the way, you were just trialing it for them, weren't you?
We were. So yeah, when we first started, it was a case of, I said to one manufacturer, right, we're going down farm tracks. The batteries are all on the bottom. And you tend to scrape the bottoms of the vans when you're going down these farm tracks. We put reinforcements on some of our vans as a result, and they said, we don't know how they're going to perform. So I said, okay, we better run some vehicles down there to see,
Mm.
and make sure that we're not going to damage them or anything else. So wherever there's a letterbox, Royal Mail has pretty much got to go there. So
Yeah.
we need vehicles. We need vehicles that are fit for that. So let me be clear. Some of our routes are yeah, we put high suspension on things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they need a certain type of vehicle. But 99% of the routes we do, an electric will now sufficiently drive down it.
Mm.
Um, where we're not a huge mileage company in terms of how many miles we drive on an average day, especially in our final mile fleet. Anyway,
Mm.
yeah, when you get into parcel force and things like that, they do a hell of a lot of miles. But in terms of our final mile fleet, we stop at our first location, we get out, we walk.
Mm.
Then we go back to the van, we move it, we get out, we walk again. and that's why you'll always see a Royal Mile Post person walking.
Yes.
So we use it as a mobile home for other mail in terms
Mm.
of it while we're out on our routes. So it's looking at the user case
Mm.
for a lot of this and saying, actually, for a stop-start organisation in terms of what we do predominantly with our final mile fleet, electrics are brilliant. Diesels are horrible
Mm.
because you get the particle filter issues, and what we find is the engines don't heat up enough to burn the particles off, so we end up with clogging in our vehicles.
Oh God.
When you replace it with electric, you have no problem.
Yeah.
So not only are we seeing a vehicle that's fit for purpose, we're seeing our breakdowns on electrics, a lot lower than they are on a diesel.
Mm.
So we're getting more reliability into our fleet as well as a result of our transformation, which is fantastic.
And also, you're also reducing air pollution because of the fact that you've moved to electric, aren't you? I mean,
And that is, and I get asked a lot about this. Where are you deploying, and why are you deploying it? So, yes, we've deployed electrics in clean air zones, but
mm,
our transformation is UK wide.
mm,
So, like I was saying to you, in terms of our operation, we've got regions, we call them, that scale the whole of the UK, and we've got electric vehicles in all those regions
mm,
because I wanted to make sure, as part of our transformation, if I come to you tomorrow and said, I want to electrify your vehicle, you can go feel touch it, and it's local to you, and you could talk to local people about how they're using their vehicles. And that was really important to me. So it
mm.
wasn't just focus on the clean air zones. Yeah, you can still use a Euro 6 diesel in the clean air zones. And what you end up doing, if you're not careful, is you end up focusing on the clean air zones and pushing all the what the clean air zones call dirtier vehicles out of everybody else.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was fair in terms of it. So we're trying to make sure that our transformation covers everybody and gives everybody a fair chance in transformation.
Are you are you able to collaborate with the local authorities as well with what you're doing? Because so I was just thinking about, and I did mention this to you before we started recording. I said to you about where Alistair is up in Carnforth, and they don't have dedicated parking, because I was just thinking about, obviously they're, I would call it up in the sticks, bless them. So it's not theoretically it wouldn't be a polluted area, but if you're wanting to kind of transfer your fleet up in somewhere like that to electric where they've not got dedicated parking, how could you, or do you work with local authorities to kind of make that happen? Because they've got a local car park where they do park, but have you done that? Have you worked with local authorities to kind of go, right,
We
okay, we need parking for this with charging. Can we do this together?
we are working with a select few local councils at the
Mm,
moment.
mm,
Message to all local councils: happy to work with you. So in that respect, I drive around the UK. I see a lot of chargers that are vacant at the moment
mm,
or underutilized,
mm,
and companies like Royal Mail could be that answer to utilizing those charge spaces, especially when they're not used. So think about shops close at 6 o'clock at night and things like that. We predominantly overnight charge. So there are opportunities, and I think certainly Royal Mail needs to do a bit more of it. So my team it's one of the tasks I've given my team, to go out and see what we can do. But if there are local councils watching this and they want to have a conversation about what we could do jointly, absolutely. Yeah,
that'd be,
we're all in. We're absolutely in your communities.
um,
So yeah,
yeah. And do you know what I would love for Alistair to experience one of the electric vans. I mean, I've had a chat with our postie, because in Reading, Oh, the fleet in Reading is electrified. I've talked to one of the posties a few months ago, and I said, how you get, how you feel, how you kind of, what's your experience been like?" And he was just like, "No, it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, it's a bit different in Reading to kind of up in Carnforth, where you've got, like you said, about the farm tracks and stuff like that. But just to have those conversations and get the, like you said, about having experience and sitting in it and feeling it and work, experiencing how that vehicle works would be brilliant.
Yeah. And I think just going back to Alistair, I think what we're doing is we're deploying the vehicles and making sure that they're capable of what we're deploying. So yeah, our newest fans now have got extended ranges and things like that. So it, it it elevates the amount of duties we can put those vehicles on. So technology will help us in terms of which vehicles, which duties, and everything else. So um, yeah, we may not have got to Alistair yet, and that might be because the vehicle might not do what Alistair's doing in his diesel every day.
Mm,
But we're finding more and more now that electric can do those duties. Um, and our transformation as it stands at the moment is very much built on how much infrastructure we can put in each year.
mm,
But we are looking at, as part of our strategy, infrastructure will take us so far, depot charging, but yeah, there's nothing against public charging or working with other companies out there and doing some potential charging sharing and things like that. So there's
mm.
other ways we can achieve our goals that don't necessarily mean I've got to put charge posts in all my depots.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, like you said about, if you can utilize another organization's charge points, then you're helping them, and then probably, they can help you, and hopefully all hopefully this will all start evening out soon, won't it? That everybody will recognize that you don't want charge points to be sat underutilized. And there are people and companies out there that can utilize those while your vehicles are out and about, dependent on how it all kind of comes together. So I really look forward to kind of seeing that meld into one, if we can have it.
Yep.
So let's just talk about carrying on about the infrastructure itself. So you kind of said to me before that if the posties or the drivers are out and about and they do need a charge and they're not the last mile, final mile, they've got RFID cards, haven't they, for kind of utilizing public charging or wherever.
Yeah, so we've got a fuel card provider that also allows us and gives us access to public charging. So um, some of our depots, some of their vehicles need a top up or they need access to a rapid charger. But
Mm,
you can imagine the cost of a rapid charger is astronomical compared to a standard 7 kilowatt, for example. So sometimes we say, right, here's a fuel card. There's a charger up the road. Go and use it.
mm,
And that's how we've been able to keep the electric vehicles rolling. So, like I said, it's not all about depot charging. Yeah, there are other means, and if there are charge posts near us, we will then do. As you can imagine, I get my big calculator out and I work out what's the cost of us, putting the infrastructure in versus using a public charger for however many years. Um, but and there is a huge but with this, is the public charging has got to be reliable and it's got to be available to us. We are a company that is reliant on by our customers to deliver whatever they've asked us to deliver. So we call it the customer promise.
mm,
And that customer has said to us when they click that button, to get their parcel, they've said, right, we're putting our faith in you to get our parcel there whenever we've asked for it, and our charging network needs to support that.
Mm.
If it doesn't, then the electric vehicles are not the option at this stage. So it's got to be an absolute seamless transition to electric. That means the mail moves.
Absolutely. And this is what and I know a lot of the charge point operators do look at this, but some probably it depends on the prioritization of the charging network themselves. It is about the EV driver, no matter where they are, who they are, when they are, why they are, you know, that's got to be the point of their push, hasn't it? There, because if you don't provide a seamless service that's simple, because we talked about this as well, didn't we, before we were recording, about having this seamless service. And I always talk about from an improvement point of view, and what you're doing, it's about standardization so that you know what you're getting. And it's never going to be the same as going to a fuel pump, is it? But we
No,
want it standardized and easy and simple.
I think if we think about the charging network, it's been built for car drivers.
Mm,
Yeah, there's been very little understanding of the commercial world in terms of it. It's been built to increase the amount of cars on the road.
yeah.
Um, so we're having to, from a commercial point of view, fit in with that network. And
Mm,
it doesn't work all the time for us. Where it does, and where it's viable, then we'll use it. But there's always, how long can you use it for, in the back of my head. Yeah, if more and more people get their electric cars, which I hope they do, those chargers will be utilised at some point, and therefore I still need a plan B.
yes.
And I'm constantly thinking, right, how long is my plan B? How long before my plan B kicks in?
Because you don't know, do you? And this is, I mean, I know that some of the CPOs, charge point operators, are kind of, they're starting to move, utilize, and start, looking at the bigger charging networks for kind of HGVs and vans and things like that, aren't they? But that's, like you say, that's kind of, it's not going to be an overnight thing. They've got to, got to move it forward. And it's going to be very expensive to retrofit spaces and car parks for vans as well. I mean, I know your little postman pat vans and your kind of DHL size vans. I can't remember which ones you're using, but they will be, they fit into spaces like you say, but they're not, it's just not perfect yet, is it?
No, so again, when we look at public charging, we look at the size of vans you can park into them. So you talked about the Sprinter vans, I think you were referring
That's it.
to when you said
Yeah.
DHL van.
Sorry, I shouldn't even
Um,
say DHL. That's a really naughty word when I'm talking to
I
somebody
know
from Royal Mail. Sorry.
it's fine, it's fine. We don't mind. Um, so yeah, we have to look at the size of the space, because again, a lot of the spaces are for cars, so you can't even get a large panel van
Mm.
into the spaces. So yeah, there's so much to think about when it comes to charging a fleet, and luckily at the moment we seem to have got most of it right.
So if we move on now to talking about you said you maintain your own fleets as well. If you're maintaining that means you've had to transfer or upskill your technicians who were working on your diesel. And is there any, originally was it all diesel fleets, or were there any petrol, like the little vans?
We had, where we had some reliability issues with the diesels, we put some petrols in. So we did
Right.
have we have got a small fleet of petrols,
Mm.
yeah.
So how easy has it been for you to upskill these technicians? Are you using apprenticeships? Are you pushing, kind of new technicians in through apprenticeships, and kind of using that to help electrify and have the maintenance on that side? Or are you upskilling everybody? How's it working for you?
So like I said, our transition has been UK wide. So
Yeah.
what we look at is we've got over 100 workshops across the
Okay.
UK, and we some of those are large workshops, loads of bays, etc. Some of them are one-man workshops, and we're very safety conscious as a company. And what we've said is, where there is one man working, we will not electrify those vehicles. We want it to be, you never know what's going to happen, and minimum workshops have to have is 2 people for us to put electric vehicles into that workshop area. So our transition has been aligned to where we've got workshops that have got multiple staff, and those technicians that are in those places have been trained up. So we train them to IMI Level 3 at the moment, but we're looking beyond that, and we're doing lots of work with the manufacturers to bring in specific manufacturer training and things like that. We've upgraded the diagnostic systems. We've put new tools in. You've got things, if you go into one of our workshops now, you'll see things like the shepherd's hook, and standard electric things that are there for safety of our technicians. So we've made a point of making sure that our electric transition in the workshops is very much safety based, and bringing people up to the level we need. And IMI Level 3 means that you could do most things up to mucking about with batteries. So anything battery related goes back to the manufacturers for them to deal with it. But in terms of it, it's we've got over 300 technicians trained now. I'm pleased to say that we are now looking at our apprenticeship scheme. So I manage the apprenticeship scheme for Royal Mail for our technicians, and we're now looking to ramp that up by about 3 times what we're currently doing. And part of that will be training on electric vehicles as well. We recognise from an industry point of view there is a shortage of technicians, and unless we bring in some fresh blood, at some point vehicles are not going to be maintained, because there is a natural dropout, people are retiring, etc. And we need to bring fresh blood into it. So we're doing a lot more work with the colleges, schools, to promote the fact that certainly when you talk to people about Royal Mail, people know us for delivering mail. What they don't recognise is that we've got other jobs that like maintaining our fleet and things like that people can get into. So we're doing a lot more work with the schools and colleges to ensure that people understand the career paths you can take in a business like ours.
So if you thinking about that, then how's that going down? Because I know obviously the move for young people, well, in some areas depends, but the move to electrification is quite interesting, because it means that it's it's different. It's to do with tech, which a lot of young people, like my son, for example, who's 18, they like that kind of thing, don't they? Has there been an uptake in that, or is it just a bit of slow growth at the moment?
So we've just taken our next batch of apprenticeships in, and we're now working on our next one. So in terms of it, there is appetite. What we want is to generate far more appetite, and make sure, like I said, it's for a company like us, it's making sure, because we run lots of apprenticeships, it's making sure people know all the apprenticeships that we do. And this is a really exciting apprenticeship for us. It's working on a range of vehicles. So 1 minute you could be working on a small vehicle, the next minute you could be working on an Arctic. We work across different manufacturers and everything else. So it creates a real unique opportunity in terms of a technician. I'm I'm quite passionate about it because it's part of my job. But it's a fantastic opportunity if you're leaving school, 16 years old, or even if you want a career change, you don't have to be a 16-year-old to do an apprenticeship. So it's one of those. So we just, from an industry point of view, we recognise it's struggling, and we want to do something to change that.
And we do. It's about that there are, there are going to be so many jobs that are needed for this. And when we've got kind of like the naysayers who kind of make comments about electrification in full stop, don't they? And they don't particularly, they don't support it because they think that it's gonna kind of take people's jobs away. But what they don't realize is that actually those jobs are going to be replaced with very different jobs. And like I say, the youngsters coming through these roles, or even people like you say who've been in the roles for a long time, can go from a variety of different things and move into electrification. That's what we need. We need that push on those skills, don't we?
We do, absolutely.
So actually doing that will make a big difference. Let's end on what your thoughts are, what you would like to see happen over the next kind of few years. Obviously, we don't know at the moment whether the new government, well, theoretically, the new government is going to bring back the ban on new internal combustion vehicles to 2030. It is currently 2035 when we're recording it, but we don't know whether it'll be just vans or whether it'll just be cars, or whether it'll be cars and vans and lorries and everything. What are your thoughts? What would you like to see happen over the next few years?
I think from a government perspective, just some clarity. I think there's so many things. Things like the government grants. No one knows whether they're going to continue or they're not. The moment they end at the end of this financial year, there's no clarity in that. And I get we've just had a general election. You've got things like the large panel van, things that still, we're still having to train people. There's still this debate about tachographs and everything else. Really and truthfully, normalizing electric vehicles like a diesel vehicle or anything else. Just normalize it. Just make it the same, so that we all know the rules and we can all get on with it. And I think that's the big one for me. There's lots of what ifs out there, people scratching their heads, and a lot of people saying, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait because I know the answer's coming at some point, and the answer is not coming quick enough. And I'm hoping now, everybody's doing their conferences at the moment. I know Labour's today and over the week, and hopefully out of that, then we'll get some clarity that we can move on.
I totally agree. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you, and let's just keep our fingers and toes and everything crossed that we start getting this clarity that you're wanting, because I think I agree. I think that's totally right. But Stuart, thank you ever so much for joining me
No worries.
today. It's been brilliant talking to you, and I think, like I say before, you are leading the way with what you're doing at Royal Mail. So just keep doing what you're doing. It's brilliant, and getting those apprentices on board. Just fantastic.
Thank you for your time.
So what I'd like to say to everybody listening to this and watching now is, you've listened to Stuart, you've heard everything he's got to say. There's some really, really interesting stuff there, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. But the only way we can actually reach out to other people and get them, like those local authorities that Stuart would like to be talking to, the only way we can do this is by sharing and kind of subscribing and adding comments and sharing with other people. So if you can do that, that would be absolutely fantastic, and you'll be on my Christmas card list. So so on that note, I'm going to say thanks again to Stuart. I'm going to say thank you to you guys for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again. Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Electric Evolution. It's been a pleasure bringing you insights and conversations about our journey to a sustainable future. If today's episode sparked your curiosity, remember to follow us so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. If you're inspired by this podcast and want to support our mission on a monthly basis, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Your contributions help us to continue exploring innovative solutions for a greener world. And for those of you who'd like to offer a different kind of support, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Every cup helps us to keep the conversation going. If you're curious about our work in the EV infrastructure at Full Circle CI, why not visit us at fullcircleci.co.uk to find out more. Or if you have any questions or suggestions, you can always send me an email at liz@fullcircle.co.uk. And finally, please don't forget to share this podcast if it did spark your interest, or even leave us a review so we can keep spreading the word about all of the topics we're covering. Until next time, see you soon. Bye.